A very warm welcome to all my dear students. First and the foremost, I welcome you all to the gateway of the world of commerce. As the students of intermediate first year, you are entering into your intermediate level with the subject called commerce. Let me introduce myself. I am Santosh Kumar Jain from Department of Commerce, St. Joseph Junior College, Yadagiri, which is managed by Hyderabad Ajdas Educational Society. It gives me immense happiness to stand before you and explain you about the subject called commerce. So let us start with the introduction to the subject of commerce. First and the foremost, we are supposed to know what does the word commerce it means. It's very simple to understand that the word commerce it means an activity which is dealing with exchange of goods and service. Just keep this basic in mind and then we'll go into the subject. Now here we are going to discuss few topics in the basics of introduction to business like the history of commerce in India, about the classification of activities, about the business organization, that is its features, objectives and the social responsibility. So to start with, the word commerce is derived from the Latin word commercium, which means an activity which involves the exchange of goods and services. So here we are going to first look into the history of commerce in India. To be frank enough, commerce is as old as civilization, but it was unknown to the people till certain era. As you know that the civilization as it creeps, the new evolutions they lead to the specialization. In that sense, we can group the phases of history of commerce into six different parts, or you can call six different stages. And the first stage is called as household economy. In this stage, we all know that the man was not that civilized, or you can say they were not civilized at all. And in this stage, only the priority was given to hunting, fishing, cultivation. In the sense, there were no commercial activities at all. There were no commercial activities at all, and that led only to the limited scope of the activity for themselves, for their livelihood. Slowly, as the man began to civilize himself, as the population started to increase, the people started to shift from one place to another place, and that led to the community development, which we call as races. And in this stage, the people started to have their own occupation. They started to specialize themselves and they opted for the medium to change the goods for goods, which was called as the barter system. Even in this stage, money was not used, or there was no medium called money. And slowly, what happened? This barter system, it led to the development of commerce, we can say, but without money, without currency. And as such, it led to the rise of trade. In the sense, since the people started to scatter themselves to different places, the market also developed. And that led to the development of trade. And in this stage, the trade was confined to a limited area only. And that limited area was none but like a home trade, we can call. In the sense, the development or the goods were exchanged within the scope of their particular area. And from there, the trade went into the town economy. Town economy in the sense where it gave birth to wholesalers and retailers. And these wholesalers and retailers, they started to produce the goods not only for a confined area, but also for the different areas. Say, for example, a person who was in Tamil Nadu, he started to produce certain goods and he transported those goods to people who are in Delhi. In that way, we can say the town economy, in the sense the home trade, it started to develop. And as a matter, the development was taking place and industrial revolution came into existence. And that industrial revolution, it led to the development of international trade, that is foreign trade. In this stage, we can say that till the town economy, we can call it that it was the traditional commerce. And from this stage, that is the fifth stage, which is called as the international stage, from here, the commerce took the shape of modern commerce. And today we see that this international trade, where the goods are exchanged, the commerce activities, the trade activities are going beyond the scope of the country also. And this stage, it led to the different outcomes like your banking, your transport, your advertisement, and so on. And from there till 1990, this international trade was developing and developing. And now today, we see that the inventions, they led to the development of e-commerce. Early in the year 1990s, we can say that this e-commerce, in the sense with the usage of internet, we started to have our online shopping. We started to have our online commerce, that is buying and selling. And this e-commerce, we can say it is totally a modern commerce, which we'll discuss in our last session. Now coming towards the second topic called classification of human activity. Dear students, we know that every person in this world is the creation of God. And as the creation of God, we know that we have to do some work. Maybe to have the livelihood, or maybe to satisfy our desires and wants. So, as a matter, first thing we are supposed to know, what do we mean by the word activity? Activity, in simple terms, it is act of doing a specific work to get the satisfaction. There ends the matter. So, the word activity itself says that it is an act of doing the work. And that act of doing the work, it is done by the human beings to earn, to live, and to enjoy. And those activities we group in the heading called human activities, which are the nuclear point for the emergence of commerce, business, trade, whatever we call. So, now let us discuss the core concept called the classification of human activity. When we talk about classification of human activities, here the human activities can be grouped into two categories. We divide the human activities into two categories. The category number one is called as economic activity, and the second category is called non-economic activity. First one is economic activity and second one is non-economic activity. Now these two activities, we can say they are the focal point for the entire subject of the commerce. So first let us see about the non-economic activity, then we'll come to economic activity. When we talk about non-economic activity is an activity which is done by a person to with the motive of rendering services. It is not done to earn the profit. It is done out of love, out of passion, out of affection, out of patriotism. How so? Say for example, when your mother is cooking food for you, It means that she's not expecting anything in return from you, but she expects only your love and affection. Thereby, we call that as non-economic activity. In the similar manner, when you help a blind person to cross the road or you make him to cross the zebra crossing, it means that you have done a non-economic activity. Once you make the person to cross the road, you will not expect him to give you 10 rupees or 20 rupees. Thereby, such activities are called non-economic activities. That is to say, those activities which are done with service motive are called non-economic activity. Their main focus is to render the services. Since the element called profit is not included in this particular activity, they are falling beyond the scope of the commerce. That is, we don't consider them into the business activities. But let me make it one thing clear. We have certain organizations like non-NGOs we call, they come under non-economic activity that we are going to see in the later session. Now coming towards economic activity. Economic activity is an activity which is done by an individual, by an human being to earn the profit. Service is not only the criteria in this economy or in the world, even the profits they matter, thereby the activities which are done by an individual to earn the profit are called economic activities. These economic activities are done with an intention to create the situation of commerce, and thereby these economic activities, we group them into three broad categories. One is called as, the first one is known as your business. The second one is called employment, and the third one is called as profession. Now, here we'll take the opportunity to learn about each and every human activity, that is human economic activity. The first one is business, the second employment, and third is your profession. Now, coming towards the discussion on business. This is a very wide topic, but for time being, we are going to see only the narrow terms. What does the word business it means? Later, we are going to see the features and the objectives and its responsibility in detail. So, first and foremost, when we take the word business, it means, and it is derived from the Latin word busy. Keep in mind, it is derived from the Latin word busy. And the word busy itself, literally it means keeping oneself engaged in some or the other activity. And why to keep someone into an activity? That activity which he keeps himself is called as state of being busy, and that is called as business. Today, you see across the world that there are many business. When you look at a particular person who is standing beside the roadside and selling the fruit, you say, sir, he's doing a business. Ma'am, he's doing a business. When you look at a person who is having a kirana shop, that is a grocery shop, you say he is conducting business. Like that, everyone knows literally that it is a activity which is done for what? To earn the profit. So here the focus is, what does the business it means? The word business, literally it is described as state of being busy. And that state of being busy, it means that it is an activity which is involved with production, distribution, exchange of wealth, exchange and conversion of wealth, in fact we can say. And that activity is done by a person who is called as businessman. A person who organizes or who conducts the business is called as businessman. Even this businessman in the modern day, he is described as entrepreneur also. We can designate him with the entrepreneur. And the reward for businessmen for the stress what he has taken is profit. The main purpose why a person does the business is to earn profit. Everyone cannot do the business. Very difficult for everyone to do the business. So what is the other alternative for the livelihood? Then have another activity which is called as employment and professional activity. When it comes to employment, employment is described as relationship between two persons, two individuals we can say, where one individual is providing certain quantum of work to other person, and that other person, he agrees to complete the work. He agrees to complete the work. And that kind of contractual relationship between two parties is called as employment. Here we have two parties. Whereas in business there was one person who was called as businessman. And here in employment we have two parties, and those among those two parties, one is going to assign the work and other is willing to complete the work. The person who assigns the work under the terms and conditions is called employer. He is called as employer, who is designated even as master. And the person who agrees to discharge the work, the person who agrees to complete the work, the person who agrees to accomplish the work is called employee. And that employer and employee, where we come across the discharging of work, it is done for the consideration called salary or wage. Here, for the work assigned by the employer and for the work completed by the employee, the employer, who is master, will remunerate, in the sense will pay the person called employee with certain benefit in terms of money, which we call as salary or wage. And the third one comes about the profession. This profession, in fact, it is like a vocation or occupation. Vocation in the sense where you think that you are fit for that particular job. Whereas occupation is also something which is very closely related to your vocation only. Now, for example, how to make you understand with the profession. You all may be aware about Javed Habib. You all may be aware about your Shehnaz Hussain. They are the beauticians we call. Similarly, Sanjay Kapoor is a master chef. Like that, we have in the economy, in the world, in the country, the people who are having their own talents and skills. These particular set of people, they first and the foremost, they try to educate themselves in that particular activity. They try to get trained into that activity, and that activity is called profession. In the sense, a person who involves himself in certain activity which is backed by educational qualification, which is backed by his inner talents and his expertise skills, can be grouped under the category called profession. Say for example, doctor. To become doctor, you have to complete your MBBS. Chartered accountant. To become a chartered accountant, you have to complete your CA course. To become lawyer, you have to complete your bachelor's of law. In the sense, compulsory educational qualification is an essential element for becoming a professional. So profession is something which is related with an occupation or vocation of a person, which is backed by the expertise, his skills, talent, and educational qualification. Now, this particular person, as we saw in business, he earns profit. In case of employment, he gets salary or wage. In the similar manner, in case of profession, what the professional man, one who is rendering services, is going to get. As a consideration for profession, he charges the amount which is called as fees. He collects fees. Say for example, when you go to doctor and after he heals, we cannot say, doctor, how much is your salary? We ask him, how much is your fees? When you go to a college, you ask, how much is the fees? You cannot say, how much is the salary? So in this way, the economic activity is classified into three categories. One, the business. Second one, the employment. And third one is the profession. For business, the reward is profit. For employment, the reward for employee is the wage or salary. Whereas for employer, who is like a businessman, again, for him it is profit. Whereas for the profession, it is fees which he collects from his clients. This is the broad classification about the human activity. Now coming towards the third part, which is the most important part for discussion, is about the features of business. How to analyze the business, how a business looks. What are the characteristics if I want to call that it is a business? So there are few characteristics of business which are given, and those characteristics, when they are fulfilled, it is called as business. And the first character, what we come across, the features of business, we can say that the first character is it is an economic activity. As I said that the first feature of business is an economic activity. It means that basically an activity which is done with an intention of producing goods and services and to earn the profit is called an economic activity. This is the basic characteristic feature of business. The second characteristic feature of business is the profit motive. Every business activity, any business activity which is done, it is done with an intention to earn profit. Profit is that element which is required by every business to sustain, to grow, to expand. Without profit, you cannot think about a business activity. So, profit is regarded as the basic element of business. Why? Because if there is no profit motive, then that goes into the non-economic activity, whereby the element called profit motive is. Then how to earn the profit? They say that the profit is to be earned with all the legal means. One should not follow illegal methods or should not follow the malpractices like wrong weights and measures or charging high prices. Profit should be earned but with all fair means. Then the third feature says that there should be continuity. The third feature says that there should be continuity. Continuity means what? Business itself is to done on regular basis. There should be continuity of transaction. It should not be in isolation. In the sense, for example, today if I buy a bicycle and if I sell to my friend, I cannot call that as a business activity. But same, if I establish a shop, a unit, and in that if I sell cycles regularly, then it becomes my business. Similarly, say for example, if I am cooking at my home as a master chef and serving to my own family members, it doesn't constitute business. But same if I cook for a person in the restaurant and sell, it becomes the business. Like that, continuity of transaction should be there. Regularly, they should be transaction. Now, what are to be transacted? Then they say that it deals with goods and services. Business, it deals with goods and services. Now, the word goods, when we take the word goods, it refers to any merchandise, any product in which you are going to do the business. Say for example, for a grocer, I mean to say kirana shop, all the food items like your rice, dal, wheat, jawar, bajra, they are the goods. Similarly, say for example, for a sweet shop, it may be the samosa or whatever, they are goods. Then sir, what about services? Here when we talk about services, it can be a business of transport. As a travel agent, you are providing the services to various people by helping them, by giving them the transport like bus, like cab and so on. Thereby, goods and services. So, any activity which deals with goods and services is called as business activity. Now, here, when it comes to goods, goods are of two categories. One, they are called consumer goods and other is called as your capital goods. Consumer goods are those goods which are ready for consumption purpose. They are ready for consumption purpose. In the sense, they are in the form of commodity where you can use them directly. Say for example, your bread, your butter and so on. They are coming under the category called consumer goods. Whereas those goods which help in the production of consumer goods are called capital goods. Like for example, all your equipment, your raw material, they come under the goods called capital. They are semi-finished you can call, or they are not in the what you would say final product form. Then comes business. The feature of business is that business creates utilities. Business creates utility. Here when we call about utility, utility means giving the importance to something. Creating a form into it is called as utility. As we know that there are four types of utilities: place, time, form and these utilities are to be created. For example, business helps in creating utility, means to say that it creates importance in that product. For example, log, wooden log, I mean to say, when it is in the forest, it is of no use. But the same wooden log, when it comes to market and when it is made into furniture, when it is transformed into furniture, it gets utility. But after creating them into or turning them into furniture, it is essential that it should be sold. Like that, we have to create stage by stage, the utility in the product, utility in the raw material. So, business helps in creating utility. Then, they say that even the business is like an art and science. In fact, business is art and science. Now, what makes business to be called as art and what makes business to be called as science? Art in the sense skill to do the business, to run the business, to organize the business, to conduct the business itself is a skill. Thereby, we call that it is an art. And while conducting the business, while fulfilling the business activities, we need to follow certain principles and laws. And that reason we call business as art as well as science. As it involves the skill and it is backed by certain principles and laws, we call it as art and skill.